You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines from across the continent this evening. In Malawi, nurses have staged a walkout in hospitals across the country over working conditions amid fears they won't be able to handle a spike in coronavirus cases. Now, this strike comes amid divisions in the country over whether to implement a lockdown or not. In Nigeria, President Buhari has lashed out at bandits who he says are taking advantage of the lockdown. Gunmen are responsible for at least 47 deaths in the northeast state of Katsina in recent days. And Ethiopia celebrates Orthodox Easter, this despite the country's state of emergency over COVID-19. We'll bring you a report from Addis Ababa. Thanks for watching Eye on Africa. Now we start in Malawi, where nurses are on strike, saying that they cannot cope with an increased workload against the backdrop of already challenging working conditions. They say the lack of adequate protective equipment is a problem as the contagion is expected to rise. Now, despite this, there have been fewer than 20 confirmed cases of coronavirus so far in the southern African country. In recent days, the country's health minister said he was looking into recruiting thousands of new hospital staff. Now, all of this comes in the midst of tensions over whether or not the country should implement a 3-week lockdown. The government's proposal to shut down businesses for 21 days was blocked by the High Court. Activists convinced judges that the government had no plan to help the poorest communities who would be hardest hit. Nicola Germain has more.
Judges in Malawi once again showed their independence. Earlier this year, they annulled the result of the presidential election. And now they have temporarily barred for 7 days the government's 3-week lockdown. Activists went to the High Court and argued the authorities had planned nothing for all the poorest citizens who survive on daily earnings.
We think a lockdown is important because it's proved elsewhere that it can stop or reduce the spread of the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Our message, though, and our worry is that government should not rush into effecting a lockdown without making sure that it has put in place measures that would cushion the vulnerable.
More than half of Malawi's 17 million inhabitants live below the poverty line. Those who live hand to mouth welcomed the court's decision.
Kuti tizikhala mmakomo ndeti tizikhala moyo ovutika ifeyo timapanga business yogulisa tomato ndeti tikakhale mmakomo ana sangadye ndeti tizikhala moyo ovutika kwambiri ndefe sitinachilandire.
The government faced another problem on Monday when health workers went on strike over pay and lack of equipment in the current context. Many patients had no option but to return home as no one was there to look after them.
Now, dozens of bandits wreaked havoc in Nigeria's northeast over the weekend. Scores were killed, with the official number standing at 47. President Buhari is from Katsina state, where much of the violence happened. So he condemned the attacks, which he said were coordinated and pre-planned. Amongst the motives for raiders was the theft of livestock. Sam Olakoya has more from Abuja.
About 300 gunmen carried out this attack over the weekend. It was a simultaneous attack on 5 villages, and some people even assume that the number of casualties claimed by the police might be far higher than what the police are claiming. This particular group has been quite notorious in this area. They've carried out kidnappings, they've robbed people, they've been quite brutal in whatever they are doing, and they've made a lot of money kidnapping people, and that is perhaps one of the reasons why they are so formidable. They've been able to recruit very many members, and the military has over the years tried to actually confront this group, but it's been so difficult doing that. They have an hideout in one of the forests there where they always retreat back into whenever they carry out their attacks. Now President Buhari is assuring the people that this type of killings that have gone up over the years, his administration is determined to stop it.
Now to some news in brief from across the continent. Human Rights Watch said on Monday that it believed security forces in Burkina Faso had summarily executed 31 detainees earlier this month, this during operations against Islamist militants. The government is struggling to contain jihadist groups who have stoked ethnic conflict in the north of the country by closely associating themselves with Fulani herders. Now, those Fulani civilians have borne the brunt of reprisals by soldiers and vigilantes. Nigeria has confirmed its first coronavirus case in the insurgency-hit northeast of the country. A medic with Doctors Without Borders passed away, having contracted the virus. Now, elsewhere, some 600 cases have been detected across the country, with some 20 fatalities. Ghana has ended a 3-week lockdown in the capital, Accra, as well as the Kusami region. President Nana Akufo-Addo made the announcement on national TV, saying testing measures had improved and the lockdown was having too severe an impact on the poor. Mali went to the polls on Sunday in the second round of parliamentary elections. Vote counting is still underway. The first round was held last month and saw voter turnout of just 12%. Now, the poll was further marred by the kidnapping of opposition leader Soumaïla Cissé. Now, these are the first elections since 2013 which saw President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's party win a large majority. Now, in its efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19, Ethiopia declared a state of emergency on the 8th of April. As a result, parliamentary elections scheduled for August have been postponed. Now, the emergency has not prevented Ethiopians, however, from marking Orthodox Easter. Marta Gert-Nicolescu sent us this report from Addis Ababa.
These residents of Addis Ababa are travelling to their families outside of the capital for the Easter weekend. With the state of emergency, buses have to stay half empty, so prices have doubled. Despite long waiting lines and the risk of contracting COVID-19, they are determined to leave the city. Social distancing is impossible to implement. Some travellers changed their minds to avoid taking any risks.
In
other parts of the city, life goes on at a slow pace. Cafes are still running, but some shops have closed. For many, the pandemic justifies the state of emergency, but this member of the opposition party says he's worried about the election delay. The current government will have no constitutional legitimacy once the emergency measure is lifted.
Opposition and the government has come to agreement to form a kind of national transitional government until a proper time is set for the election. We worry that the government may use this state of emergency to limit the movement of the opposition forces.
But according to this analyst, the election delay could prove positive and even calm political tensions across the country.
That gives the parties more time. It gives the electoral board more time to prepare. It gives the political actors opportunity to negotiate over issues like what are the conditions for a fair election and how to achieve them.
It's impossible to know whether Abiy Ahmed's government will manage to avoid a political crisis after the COVID-19 pandemic. But for now, all parties seem to agree that efforts to contain the virus remain a top priority.
Now, amid current restrictions, many countries in Africa are looking to TV and radio as a means of continuing to provide education for children. The English-speaking regions of Cameroon are now broadcasting classes on national TV. Now, these regions have already seen education severely impacted by separatist fighting as factions seek independence from the rest of Francophone Cameroon. James Vezina has more.
The first one is...
Unable to make it to the classroom, Divine Nkwenwi has taken to teaching chemistry on TV. But the new teaching methods comes with a set of drawbacks.
We have to do more preparation, and we have to be able to narrow down our materials to just the time that is provided to us on TV, which is very, very small.
For the students tuning in, it's a long way from the busy classrooms, with no means of asking any questions.
In school, we interact with our teachers, so I'm used to interacting with my teachers and also with my students and also with my classmates, with students. But at home, it's just you and the screen.
But class interruptions aren't new in Anglophone Cameroon. Over the past 2 years, many students haven't been able to attend school amid the separatist insurgency that's killed several thousands of people. Attacks on schools and children being taken hostage. Amid such conditions, teaching can become a very dangerous vocation.
I would even say that teaching on television is more risky than teaching in a physical classroom, because on television you are exposed to a larger audience, and there are people who will see you that you don't even know them, And leaving the television station, you don't know what can happen to you. So it is more risky.
Despite the dangers, these televised classes could become the norm, a possible solution for providing a continuous education to the children of Anglophone Cameroon.
All right, that brings us to the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. Thanks for watching.